The moment I realized my own family had driven off and left me at the gas station cafe, it didn't come with panic or even surprise. It came with a strange, bitter clarity. I had just stepped out of the restroom, drying my hands on a paper towel, when I saw their car, my dark blue SUV, which Nolan insisted was better for the kids than their compact Tesla, pull away from the lot. Brianna was in the driver's seat, gesturing at something with one hand, phone pressed to her ear with the other. Nolan, next to her, tapping away at a tablet, and in the back seat, the twins, Julian and Sophie, bobbing their heads to whatever music they'd queued up on their iPads. They didn't even look back. I stood there by the side of the gas station convenience store, my sweater draped over one arm, and waited for the inevitable realization to dawn on one of them. 5 minutes, 10, 15, but nothing. The pitiful part. My purse, phone, and wallet, all still in the car. I hadn't been forgotten. I'd been dismissed. Inside, the cafe was warm and smelled faintly of frying oil and cinnamon. A college-age cashier behind the counter glanced up as I approached. "You okay, ma'am?" she asked. I smiled, the kind of smile that hides the crack of something breaking inside. "Would you happen to have a landline I can borrow?" A few moments later, I was sitting at a booth in the back with the store manager, a kind man named Richard, who lent me his phone and listened as I explained, very calmly, that I had no ID, no wallet, and no ride. But that I did, however, have access to a banking network powerful enough to reroute the fate of a suburban household with the press of a button. I called my banker first, then my travel concierge. Then, finally, I called for a private car to pick me up. While waiting, I sipped a lukewarm cup of diner coffee, watching the entrance like it owed me an apology. I half expected Nolan to come bursting in, frantic and sheepish. But he didn't. Of course he didn't. That's not how entitled people react. Not when the entitlement has taken years to calcify into something they think they're owed. So I left a note. I borrowed a piece of receipt paper from Richard and wrote, "You left me. I've taken care of the financial oversight. Call me when you're ready to have an adult conversation. Mom." I handed it to Richard and asked him to give it to the next panicked, overgrown man-child or influencer in the making who came asking for me. He nodded solemnly. "You sure you don't want to leave a phone number?" "No," I said, standing and straightening the collar of my cardigan. "They have to earn that back." The ride back into the city took 2 hours, just enough time for me to scroll through memories that now felt like distant echoes. The late-night bottle feedings, the 2 a.m. phone calls when Nolan and Brianna were overwhelmed, the thousands of miles driven to school plays, dance recitals, and emergency room visits. The $20,000 loan I'd given them interest-free last year because their accountant messed up their quarterly taxes. And the Christmas before last, when I asked if we could take just one family photo without phones, and Brianna had said, "Oh Ellie, don't be so precious." It had been coming for a long time. They hadn't left me at the gas station. They'd left me behind a long time ago. The minute I stopped being a person in their lives and became a utility. That night, I checked into the landmark hotel downtown, the one with the waterfall in the lobby and the silent hallways that smelled like jasmine. I ordered room service, roasted chicken, mashed potatoes, crème brûlée. Then I drew a bath and let myself soak until the water cooled and my fingers pruned. At 10:24 p.m., the first text came through on my tablet, which was still connected to the hotel Wi-Fi. "Nolan. Mom, where are you?" Then another, "Brianna. We thought you were behind us. Call me ASAP." I muted them all. By midnight, there were over 40 missed calls and 27 unread messages. By 1 a.m., Brianna was threatening to call the police if I didn't respond. By 1:15, she added, "None of our cards are working. Did you do something?" I closed the tablet, sipped my tea, and stared out the hotel window at the city lights. Somewhere out there, my son was probably pacing around a roadside diner parking lot, finally beginning to understand that forgetting about your mother isn't just rude. It's expensive. Very, very expensive. I was born Eleanor Gutierrez in 1956, the only daughter of Rosa and Hector Gutierrez, in the dusty town of Las Palomas, just a few miles east of El Paso. My mother was a nurse who worked the night shift at the county hospital, and my father ran a small corner grocery, the kind with creaky floorboards, handwritten price tags, and a worn bell that jingled whenever someone walked in. My parents didn't have much, but what they gave me was far more valuable than money. They gave me a spine. At the dinner table, we didn't talk about dreams unless they were attached to work plans. My father used to say, "Hope is fine, Mio, but discipline pays the bills." And my mother would add, "And dignity lets you sleep at night." I took both of those lessons to heart. I got my first job at 15, scrubbing floors at the local beauty salon on Saturdays. By 22, I had a business administration degree from New Mexico State University and a fire in my belly to never be dependent on anyone for survival. I met Marco Mendez in a laundromat while folding towels and listening to Linda Ronstadt on a portable radio. He was charming, serious, and laughed with his whole body. We married the following spring in a modest ceremony behind the church, surrounded by marigolds, tamales, and relatives who danced until the ground turned to dust. Marco had a head for chemistry and an eye for opportunity. He started tinkering with natural cleaning agents in our garage after getting laid off from his job at a chemical plant. I handled the business side. We launched a line of environmentally safe cleaning products before eco-friendly was even a buzzword. I named it VertiSpark. We sold our products out of the trunk of our car at flea markets and county fairs. Slowly, one client at a time, VertiSpark grew. By the time Nolan was born in 1985, we had regional distributors and our products on the shelves of 3 supermarket chains. We built that company over 30 years, hand in hand, sweat on sweat. And in 2016, just 2 years before Marco passed away, we sold VertiSpark to a national brand for $3.1 million. We'd made it, not flashy wealthy, not jets and diamonds rich, but real wealth. The kind that lets you exhale. The kind that means you don't have to look at the price tag on the eggs, and your grandkids never have to eat ramen for dinner unless they want to. When Marco passed, it was like a tectonic plate shifted beneath my life. Everything felt off balance. The quiet in our home was deafening. No morning coffee waiting in the pot. No debates about which charity to support next. No one to rub my knee at the dinner table just because. But Nolan, my son, he stepped in like a man raised by love. At first, he was a bright kid, always curious, always trying to find patterns in the world. After getting his MBA, Nolan went into corporate logistics and married Brianna, a fast-talking marketing director with immaculate style and an impressive LinkedIn following. They bought a 3-bedroom home in Santa Rosita, had their first child within a year, and quickly welcomed a second. I was thrilled. Being Abuelita Ellie gave my life new energy, so I leaned in. I watched the babies, did school drop-offs, cooked extra portions, helped with laundry when Brianna had deadlines, and even contributed $60,000 toward a home renovation when Nolan's promotion came through. Just to help them get over the hump, he'd said. What I didn't realize then was that I had entered into an unspoken contract I never signed. They came to depend on my help. No, expect it, in ways that crept slowly but deeply into my identity. The woman who once ran staff meetings and negotiated with chain store buyers was now the backup babysitter, grocery bag carrier, and emergency ride. I didn't mind at first. Love makes giving feel light, but over time, something changed. The thank yous stopped coming. The eye contact faded. Plans were made with my help built in, but without my input. "You're such a lifesaver, Ellie," Brianna would say with that chirpy tone, more practiced than sincere, before disappearing out the door for a wine and networking event. They meant well, I told myself. They're just overwhelmed. Just busy. It's what modern parenthood looks like. But I knew what it really was. They had stopped seeing me as a person and started seeing me as a service. And that's how, 3 years into retirement, with a 7-figure portfolio and a quiet home filled with books and memories, I found myself at their beck and call, living on their schedule, eating cold leftovers after putting the grandkids to bed. I gave, and gave, and gave, thinking love meant sacrifice. It wasn't until the night they drove away without me that I realized I'd spent years teaching them that my time didn't matter, my needs could wait, and my presence was a given. And now, they were simply living out the lesson I'd taught far too well. They never sat me down and asked, "Ellie, could you help us raise our children, maintain our household, and prop up our lifestyle with your time, energy, and money?" Of course not. That would have required acknowledgement. Intentionality. A conversation. Instead, it began subtly. Little things. A text from Brianna. "Hey, any chance you could pick up Sophie from preschool today? I'm stuck in a meeting." Then from Nolan. "Mom, think you could keep Julian for a few hours while I take Bri out for a date night?" Of course I said yes. Every time. Because that's what moms do, right? I didn't mind. In fact, I loved it. I loved my grandkids. I loved watching them grow, hearing their chatter, watching Sophie curl up in my lap with a book, and Julian beg for Abuelita's cheesy rice. These weren't chores to me. They were joy. But slowly, joy turned to obligation. Then expectation. 1 week became every week. A few hours became full days. Then weekends. Eventually, I had keys to their house, access codes to the alarm, and a drawer in their kitchen labeled Abuelita's snacks. And somewhere in all that comfort, they stopped seeing me as a gift in their lives, and started treating me like the furniture. I had access to their calendars, because someone needed to know who was picking up which child, when. They forwarded school newsletters to me, because you're better at keeping track of this stuff. They made vacation plans, assuming I'd be around, even booking international flights before checking with me. One day, Brianna texted me a spreadsheet labeled Mendez Household Spring Break Plan. I opened it to see my name penciled into every weekday slot: school pickups, swim lessons, dentist appointments. I hadn't been consulted, just inserted. I stared at the screen for 10 full minutes before texting her back. "Thanks for sending. When were we planning to discuss this?" Her reply: "Oh, I figured you'd be cool with it. You're always around. Love you, love you." Like that made it okay. Then there was the financial help. Oh, the money. $15,000 for their kitchen remodel. Because Brianna insisted quartz counters would elevate the home's market value. $8,500 for a last-minute preschool enrollment, because the public waitlist was too long. $2,200 for Nolan's dental conference travel. "We'll pay you back after tax season," he'd said. They never did. I never brought it up. Not once. And that's on me. Because for a long time, it felt good to be needed. It gave me purpose. It made the house feel less quiet, my days less long. But at some point, I stopped being their mother, and became their margin for error. Their backup. Their plan B. The worst part wasn't the tasks, or the money. It was the invisibility. They talked about me in third person. In front of me. "Ellie can just pick them up. I'm sure Mom won't mind. She's not doing much anyway." I was right there, at the table, folding their laundry, tucking their children into bed, holding their lives together with invisible thread. One evening, after watching the kids all day while Nolan and Brianna attended a gala, I overheard them in the kitchen. Brianna was sipping wine, scrolling through photos of the event on her phone. "This dress looks amazing. So glad we went. Couldn't have done it without our built-in nanny," she said, laughing. "Yeah," Nolan replied. "She's a godsend. Honestly, we'd be drowning without her." And just like that, it landed. The word nanny. Not mom. Not abuela. Not Ellie. Nanny. The next morning, I tried to tell myself it was a joke. That I was overreacting. That maybe Brianna just meant it playfully. But the feeling sat with me like cold cement. Heavy. Solid. Real. That weekend, I hosted a Sunday brunch. I made chilaquiles, fresh mango slices, and café dola. The kids were laughing, the food was warm, the sun was out. And as I watched Nolan scroll on his phone, I asked, "Hey, would you two be willing to come by next weekend to help me clean the garage?" Nolan didn't even look up. "Can't. We've got a wine tasting thing in Paso. Maybe the weekend after." I nodded, and made a mental note. The give and take in this family had turned into give and give. And somehow, I had become the one person whose time was seen as optional, because they assumed I had nothing better to do. They were wrong. They were so very wrong. It didn't happen all at once. That's how these things always go, isn't it? You don't wake up one day and realize your family no longer sees you. You only notice the silence after it's been growing for a while. I began to sense the change during holidays. At first I was asked, "Would you mind bringing your famous cinnamon rolls this year?" Then it became, "We'll need the cinnamon rolls, obviously." There's a difference between a request and a demand dressed up in nostalgia. And once the line blurred, there was no going back. The phone calls changed too. They used to start with pleasantries. "How are you, Mom? How's your garden? Did you finish that book?" Then it shifted to logistics. "Can you pick Sophie up at 3? Julian has a doctor's appointment at 11. You good for that? We'll be back late. Pizza's in the freezer, if they get hungry." No check-ins, no conversation, just scheduling. The tone changed most with Brianna. She had a way of smiling while making you feel small, always wrapped in soft words that covered a hard edge. She stopped saying please. She stopped saying thank you. She began telling me when to arrive, not asking if I was available. One afternoon, she texted me, "Hey, I booked a massage and facial tomorrow, so I'll need you by 10. No hello, no punctuation, just a directive. I replied, "I have a hair appointment tomorrow. Can't make it." She called me within 2 minutes. "Is there any way you could move it?" I already confirmed the spa time. No apology. No acknowledgement that I had a life of my own. Just a soft-voiced insistence that my schedule bend to hers. I wish I could say I put my foot down then. That I told her, "I am not your on-demand helper." But I didn't. Not yet. Instead, I moved the appointment, because that's what I'd trained them to expect. Compliance. Quiet, dependable compliance. The breaking point, the real shift, came when Brianna began booking things without even telling me. One weekend, I was gardening when a delivery van pulled into my driveway. Out stepped a young man, with a duffel bag, and a confused look on his face. "You Mrs. Mendez?" he asked. "I'm here to be dropped off. Nolan and Brianna said you'd watch me for the weekend." It was a new babysitter, a last-minute stand-in for their nanny, who'd canceled. They'd sent him to my house, assuming I'd just step in without being asked. And that was the moment. That was when I realized, this wasn't just entitlement, it was erasure. I was no longer a person in their lives. I was infrastructure. So I did what any woman with self-respect and a financial portfolio would do. I stopped answering every text. I stopped accepting last-minute requests. I started saying no. And when the panic set in, when the cracks began to show in their picture-perfect schedule, I let them feel it. Not out of spite, but because sometimes the only way to remind people you're not a doormat is to let them trip when the mat is gone. Before I continue, I want to ask all of you to please give a like to this video and subscribe to my channel, The Silent Stories, for more stories like mine. Your support means the world to me. Also, I'd love to know where you're watching from, so drop a comment telling me which country you're tuning in from. It's incredible to see how far this community of wonderful people has grown, and I'm so grateful to be able to share my story with you. It was supposed to be a celebration. Nolan had just closed his first $1 million logistics deal, and Brianna insisted we all take a road trip to Monterey to unplug, breathe ocean air, and reset. She said it like a wellness coach in a luxury commercial. I didn't mind. I packed snacks, helped dress the kids, and even cleaned the car out the night before. I drove again. My SUV had more space, better suspension, and according to Nolan, made more sense logistically. We stopped at a gas station about an hour from the coast. The twins needed a bathroom break, and Brianna wanted a fancy iced coffee from the cafe next door. I used the restroom, took a short stroll around the shop, and paused by a shelf of postcards. I was holding one that said, "Wish you were here," when I heard the familiar purr of my SUV engine pulling out of the lot. I stepped outside in disbelief. Gone. They were gone. At first, I thought maybe they'd circled around, maybe Julian needed something from the back seat. Maybe Brianna had taken a call and driven the car to a quieter spot. 10 minutes passed, then 20. Then it hit me, cold and unshakable, they had left me. Not in anger, not in emergency, just left. They were so used to my presence being automatic, so certain that I'd always be where they needed me, that they'd somehow driven off without noticing I was missing. I stood alone in the California sun, blinking into the distance where my car had vanished, and for the first time in years, I didn't move. I didn't panic, I didn't call, I didn't chase. I walked calmly back into the cafe and asked the young woman behind the counter if there was a landline I could borrow. I didn't have my phone or wallet. Both were in the back seat of my own vehicle, now en route to Monterey without me. She handed over the phone. I smiled politely and said, "I need to call a ride. My family forgot me." Her eyes widened. "Seriously?" "Dead serious," I replied. I made one call, not to Nolan, not to Brianna. I called my assistant at the bank. Within an hour, every card I'd co-signed, every backup account I'd guaranteed, and every emergency fund I'd once opened for their convenience, frozen. I called a car service, gave them my name and the cafe's address, and booked myself a hotel suite in Monterey. Not the one they'd reserved for me. A better one. Ocean view, corner suite, spa credit included. That night, I dined alone on the hotel's balcony, barefoot, sipping a glass of chilled rosé while waves crashed beneath me. I had seared scallops and crème brûlée. I took my time. I didn't rush. I didn't answer the first call from Nolan. Or the second. Or the 13th. By 10:34 p.m., I'd received 38 text messages and 22 missed calls. "Mom, where are you? We're freaking out. The kids are scared. Why aren't you answering? Then, did you cancel the cards? We can't check into the hotel." I turned my phone off. I slept soundly for the first time in months. By morning, my phone was vibrating non-stop on the nightstand. I let it ring while I finished my coffee in a white robe, watching the sun slide over the water. When I finally turned it on, the messages came in a flood. The subject line was no longer "Where are you?" It was "Please. Please, Mom. The kids are exhausted. We've been in the car all night. The front desk won't let us check in without a card. I don't know what's going on, but this is serious. Please just call me." Then a voicemail from Brianna, voice thin and sharp from panic. "Ellie, the hotel says they can't run anything because the card declined and all the backups failed. The kids are crying. Julian is cold. Please tell me this is some kind of mix-up." "No, Brianna, not a mix-up. A wake-up." Around noon, Nolan sent a longer message. "Mom, I am so sorry. We didn't realize you weren't in the car. We were both on work calls and assumed you were with us. We're all freaking out. Please let us know you're safe. I swear we didn't mean to leave you behind." That last line, "we didn't mean to," sat heavy in my chest. Because that was exactly the problem. They didn't mean to forget me, because they didn't think to check. My presence had become so routine, so expected, that the idea of me not being there didn't even occur to them. And that not the ride, not the hotel, not even the money, was what hurt most. By late afternoon, their tone had changed. The panic had burned off the arrogance, and what remained was desperation. "Brianna again, this time quieter. I know we messed up. Please, can we just talk? I'll drive to wherever you are. I'll pay you back for everything. I just want to fix this." Then Nolan. I don't know how to make this right, but please let me try. I don't want to teach my kids that this kind of behavior is okay. I don't want to be the kind of man who forgets his own mother. Ah, there it was. The first flicker of understanding. Around 7 p.m. I sent a text, "I'm safe. I've paid for everything. I'll see you when I'm ready." No love, Mom. No emoji. No warmth. Just truth. I spent 2 more days in that hotel. I walked along the beach. I got a facial. I turned off my phone and watched documentaries. I read the novel I'd been trying to finish for months. I ate dessert first, and I didn't feel one drop of guilt. Let them squirm. Let them sit with the discomfort. Because discomfort is the seed of change. And for 3 years I'd spared them that, covered every crack with my time, my money, and my silence. Not anymore. When I finally returned home, the house was spotless. There was a bouquet of hydrangeas on the kitchen counter. A note. "We're sorry. We love you. We want to talk when you're ready." No and B. That night, Nolan called. I let it go to voicemail. Then I played it back. Slowly, on speaker as I folded laundry. "Mom, we've been talking. A lot. We realize now how badly we've taken you for granted. I know this might take time, but we want to make things right. Not with words. With change." I smiled. Finally, they were starting to understand that real love, real family, isn't just about being there when it's convenient. It's about respect. And respect is earned. When Nolan showed up at my front door, he looked like a different man. No suit. No polished shoes. Just jeans, a sweatshirt, and eyes that hadn't slept well in days. In one hand, he held a bouquet of white tulips. My favorite, though he hadn't remembered that detail in years. In the other, a manila folder. "Hi, Mom," he said softly. "Can I come in?" I stepped aside without a word. We sat at the kitchen table, the same table where I'd helped him with algebra in 8th grade, baked his birthday cakes, and signed the first check for his business loan. The weight of history sat between us. He cleared his throat. "Before I say anything else, I just want you to know I'm sorry. For forgetting you at the gas station. For forgetting you, period. For treating you like a given." I didn't say anything. I just let the silence stretch, because silence has power. It forces people to keep talking, to fill in the spaces they usually ignore. "I think we got so used to you being the reliable one, the glue, that we stopped seeing you altogether," he continued. "We didn't mean to. But that doesn't make it okay." I nodded slowly. "You didn't mean to leave me at the cafe. I know, but you also didn't mean to take advantage of me for 3 years. And yet you did." Nolan swallowed hard. "I know." Then he opened the folder. "I want to talk about what comes next," he said, sliding a few papers across the table. The first was a written agreement. Not legal, just symbolic. It laid out new terms for our relationship, requests instead of assumptions, mutual calendar syncing, and a clause titled "Respecting Ellie's Time and Autonomy." The second page was a proposed monthly stipend for caregiving, should I choose to continue helping with the kids, with a detailed breakdown of hourly rates, boundaries, and limits. And the third, a handwritten letter from Brianna. I picked it up slowly. It wasn't long, 1 page. But it was thoughtful, raw, and free of the buzzword-laced gloss she so often used. "Ellie, I thought I was being grateful by saying you're a lifesaver every now and then. But I see now that gratitude without behavior is just noise. I'm sorry for all the times I treated you like background. I'm sorry for every missed please and forgotten thank you. I'm sorry for assuming you had no life of your own. If you're willing, I want to rebuild this with honesty, equality, and respect." I looked up. Nolan's eyes were red. "I know it's not enough yet," he said. "We have to show you, not just say it. But we're ready to earn back your trust." I folded the papers carefully and set them down. "I appreciate this," I said. "But I want you to understand something very clearly, Nolan. Going forward, I'm not going to help out of guilt or habit, or obligation. If I give, it'll be on my terms. He nodded. That's fair. And if I say no, I expect it to be respected, not negotiated. Understood. And I'm not doing this for free anymore. Not because I need the money, but because it forces you to value my time. Mom, he said gently, you have my word. That night, I lit a candle and sat by the window, watching the breeze move through the trees. I wasn't angry anymore. I was calm, because finally, they had begun to understand the lesson I'd waited 3 years to teach. Love without respect is exploitation, and I'm no one's afterthought. Respect isn't a conversation, it's a pattern. A rhythm you show up for every day, even when it's inconvenient. And over the weeks that followed, Nolan and Brianna, to their credit, showed up. It wasn't grand gestures or flowery apologies anymore. It was quiet change. Brianna started texting, not directing. Would you be open to helping with school pickup next Friday? If not, no worries, just wanted to ask. She never assumed, never presumed, and when I said no, which I did, a few times, she responded with grace, not guilt. Nolan created a shared family calendar where every request was logged, color-coded and confirmed. And every week, like clockwork, they transferred the agreed-upon compensation, not just for the time, but for gas, meals, and even last-minute babysitting. At first, it felt strange, formal, almost transactional, but something beautiful bloomed from it. Clarity. No more emotional murkiness. No more quietly tallying sacrifices in the corners of my mind. Everything was acknowledged, valued, and mutually agreed upon. More than the logistics though, it was the emotional repair that mattered. One Saturday morning, Nolan arrived unannounced, not with an ask, but with coffee and a folding chair. He sat beside me on the porch, while I trimmed my rose bushes. I used to think love meant not needing to say thank you, he said. Because we're family, because it's just what you do. But now I realize, love requires thank you, every time. I didn't say anything, I just nodded. A few days later, Brianna invited me to lunch. Not to babysit, not to help, just lunch. She cried a little in the booth, her mascara smudging as she told me about the fear she'd felt that night. Not just of being stranded, but of what it had revealed about who she'd become. I don't like that version of myself, she said. And I don't want my kids learning that this is how we treat people who make our lives possible. That was the moment I forgave her, not because the wound was gone, but because the lesson had landed. And the twins, they began to understand too. Brianna and Nolan started modeling appreciation in front of them, making sure to thank me out loud, to involve me in decision-making, to highlight the ways I helped. One afternoon, Sophie handed me a crayon drawing. It was a picture of me, standing in front of their house, with a big smile and a crown. You're the queen of our family, she said. I kept that drawing on my fridge. Still do. We celebrated Thanksgiving together that year. But, unlike before, I wasn't the one cooking all day while they arrived late, arms empty. This time, Nolan brought the turkey, pre-carved. Brianna made the pies from scratch. They brought wine, flowers, and even a cleaning crew that arrived the next morning, their treat. When we sat down to eat, Nolan stood to give a toast. His voice was steady, but his eyes shimmered. To my mother, he said, who reminded us, the hard way, that love without respect isn't love at all, that the people who support us deserve more than silent gratitude. They deserve voice, value, and choice. Everyone raised a glass. I did too, because in that moment, I wasn't just the matriarch. I was seen, not as help, not as backup, as Eleanor Mendez, the woman who quietly built a legacy, and finally demanded to be treated like part of it.